Hey everyone, thanks so much for joining us again at another great virtual Char Tech Academy event. Today we have our Chief Technology Officer here with Highwire Networks, David Barton. David, how are you doing today?
I'm good. Happy to be here.
My name is Jeremy Cullen. I'm a Channel Account Director here at Overwatch, and we're going to discuss security today and why and how much security is enough. So David, when you start thinking about some of the issues that we're seeing in today's landscape and why we need to add different defense and depths, if you would, what is the big changes that have happened over the past 5 to 10 years that require us to change our approach?
Well, I think if you look at the volume of breaches, successful hacks, data disclosures, right? There's been so much happening in the industry, and we have to take a step back and say why. What's happening? What is a common thread amongst all of these events? And at the end of the day, we have this mindset that if we put a firewall in place and we put some antivirus in place, we've done enough. And I would argue, and I think the statistics would support my position, that if those things were enough of themselves, we wouldn't have these breaches. We wouldn't have near the amount of notifications that are going on, right? How many people on this call have from Target to today had breaches that they've been notified of where their data might have been available, right? And so what's interesting, Jeremy, is even if you look at the big companies who were doing even more than just firewalls and antivirus, you'll find that they're still not doing enough, right? They're still not educating their people. They're still not thinking about the big picture, the defense in depth idea. So I don't think there's one watershed moment over the last 10 years. I think it's just been a volume, steady state volume of bad things happening. And if you don't get ahead of it, if you don't start thinking about all of these point solutions in a holistic manner, you're going to miss things. And that miss is what's causing the problem.
And for our MSP folks, you mentioned a lot of point solutions out there. I think the latest numbers we saw is there's over 1,500 different point solutions they can choose from. What's the key point that we need to think about when we have all this information out there? How's the best way to go about monitoring them and making sure that we have an early warning system in place?
So I think the 1,500 is probably light. I think it's probably more than that now, because there's some very innovative people who are solving point problems, and they go build something and it's the best sliced bread maker in the world, but they don't think about how it integrates or how it should share data, how it should share alert information, how it should respond in a event or a correlated event, right? And so I think the bigger question, Jeremy, is how do we get to a point where all of these innovators are thinking about security, not just solving a point problem, but how do we go to a step further? How do we get to where we've got normalized data? How do we get to where we have correlated, enriched data so that we can make better decisions? Because at the end of the day, the first problem is too many tools, right? And I know the topic of this conversation is how much security is enough. And when you try to boil the ocean with that question, we're going to struggle to give a concise answer. What's more important than what's enough is, do my tools talk to each other? Do they share data? Is somebody able to, via machine learning, AI, or human, correlate what we're seeing over here in Germany with what we're seeing over here in Philadelphia, right? If I can't correlate those events to tell you that you're getting attacked in multiple vectors, I'm going to miss something, right? And that third problem that we always talk about is the volume of data. If you've got 1,500 point solutions and they're all sending data, how do you find what's important, right? How do you filter out the noise to find the needle? And that, to me, that's the bigger issue. So how much is enough security? Whatever it takes to get to that point in your maturity model where you can filter the noise, you can get to what's important, and more importantly, take action on it.
And with this information that you want to get from these different point solutions, how can one go about ingesting it and making sure that you're covering all the different bases? I believe, you know, the new industry term is OpenXDR. So what does that really mean?
So we've talked a couple times, if you've watched our podcasts or any of our other videos, we talk about XDR, EDR, MDR, and at the end of the day, the X stands for extended detection and response, right? Managed detection and response is a great approach. The challenge that we typically struggle with is those MDR players have a list of technologies, and if you've got something not in that list, they're not going to help you. The EDR is a great approach at helping solve the endpoint, which is vital today as we have this dispersed workforce because of COVID, right? But that's not enough either. So XDR is that next layer or that next evolution of detection and response, where we're going to extend the ability to bring in lots of disparate data sets and detect and respond. Now, some will tell you that all XDRs are the same, but I would argue that there are manufacturer-based XDRs where if you don't have their platform and all of their components, you don't get true XDR. So what we've done is we've come up with an open XDR approach, which says we really don't care if you've got Meraki firewalls. We don't care if one of your customer sets are Fortinet and the other is Palo and the other one is Meraki. We don't care. To us, it's a firewall. We're going to bring that data in. We're going to build detections and responses on that data set. And so from a true XDR perspective, we are completely open, completely extended. Does that mean it works, everything works out of the box day one? Probably not, because everybody seems to have a snowflake or two with regard to technology, right? If you said, hey, can you bring in this data from an ATM? Probably so, but it's going to take a little time, right? We have to understand the data structures. We have to build the indexes. We have to figure out how to ingest it. But then we could build detections and we could give you some responses on your ATM network because the platform is open. That make sense?
It does. It does. I really appreciate it. So with how much security is enough? Part of that is due to the landscape changing. More people are using cloud infrastructure to service like Azure, GCP, or maybe AWS, and we're also utilizing Office 365 and G Suite. So with this open XDR concept, does it also tie into those cloud connectors as well?
I think you have to, right? In shifting the workload from on-prem to the cloud, we really haven't shifted responsibility. Meaning, if you go talk to AWS and you say, all my data is in your cloud, it's secure, right? And the answer is going to be read the fine print. And the fine print says they're not responsible, right? So we've shifted the workload, we've shifted the data storage, but we haven't always shifted the security out there either. And so OpenXDR says there are security tools out there that are cloud-based that are fantastic, that we can bring in, give you visibility, we can show you where the risk is in the cloud world, and ultimately build responses in that space as well. So not just detect bad things, but respond to it on your behalf.
When we start thinking about how much is enough, a lot of people start using the word security hygiene or risk tolerance, and that could be for the MSP or for their end customer. A good threshold, though, wouldn't you say, is to make sure that you're monitoring the events happening across the entire landscape at minimum?
I think you have to, right? So how much is enough? This is going to lend itself to a security in depth approach, right? You've got a perimeter, you've got firewalls sitting at the perimeter that have VPNs that are giving you access through the perimeter. You've got proxies that are intercepting web traffic and filtering out bad things. You've got email security that's looking for spam and bad attachments and phishing campaigns, right? But as you get closer to the core of your network, which is where all the important data sits, we tend to have this perspective that if you get past the perimeter, you must be okay. And if I'm a bad guy and I get into the honey of your network, right, the core where you do all of your processing, but you're really not watching it very well, I'm going to get all the data I want. and I'm gonna find a way to get out so you don't see me. So how much is enough? Look at your security program from a NIST framework. Think about all those controls that you should be doing, right? Whether it's encryption, whether it's monitoring, file integrity, host-based, network-based intrusion detection. There's a lot of tool sets that tie into building a defense in-depth security program. And there's a lot of folks who've written some great books, some great blogs out there. You can probably find some good podcasts, even ours on occasion. That's a selfless plug. And listen to those, right? Because there's a lot of us who've had to deal with the bad stuff, and we've matured our model and leverage that and make yours better. But again, I think the point I'll make is firewalls aren't enough. They're great. You know, they're a first line of defense. Antivirus is not enough. If you're not using a next gen antivirus, I would highly recommend you switch. And I understand there's a lot of work associated with doing that, but pattern matching for files is not a strategy that's
Right.
gonna work long term.
And another thing, once we have all this data and we're starting getting alerts, you know, the biggest problem that we have in our industry today is the shortage of cybersecurity analysts, right? Like who is going to be responding to it? So if you're an MSP out there and you're thinking about trying to build this and staff it on your own, just from a cost perspective with the cybersecurity analysts, they're usually around $150,000 a year. And how many do you think you need, David, to really monitor, let's say, 2,000 endpoints 24/7?
Well, I think the bigger question is, what do you need to have your own SOC? And so without regard to how many endpoints or employees, at a minimum to cover 7x24, weekends, time off, all that stuff, you really need about 11 people.
Oh, wow.
And if you figure that 2 or 3 are going to be tier 1, you'll have 2 or 3 tier 2s, all the way up to, you know, senior level people. You're looking at between 650 to 700,000 a year just in salaries, right?
Yeah.
If you're lucky, if you can find them. And then when you add in the tool sets and you add in the facilities, and it's really $1.5 million to $2 million endeavor. And so I'm not telling you not to do it. I'm telling you there are partners out there who do that for you. And, you know, a plug for us, we're channel only. We do this all day, every day for our partners.
Yeah, and it's very strategic, and it's about opportunity costs. I know a lot of the folks in here today use Chartek's BDR solution, which is amazing. And it's the same thing there. You know, they could build it, they could staff it, but it just makes more sense to rely on experts in the field while you go out there and really raise revenue and drive strategic relationships with your end customers too.
Yep, that's right. You know, I think security is evolving, and your security program should evolve with it. Don't assume that what we did a year ago is even valid today. It changes so rapidly. And so what you need is find a partner who stays ahead of the technology, stays ahead of the industry, who has a finger on the pulse, if you will, of cybersecurity. So they can give you advice, they can help direct you. There's a lot of folks out there who can help. You know, don't be afraid to ask, because none of us got here on our own. And we're more than happy to help you get where you need to be as well.
Please book a demo if you're interested in discussing our OpenXR and our SOC as a service, Overwatch 24/7. We're giving away a $10 Amazon gift card for 10 minutes of your time. Thank you so much, guys. Enjoy the event and come by our booth and check us out.